All right, YouTube family. We're just tuning in. Hopefully, you guys are doing great. We are back at it again for Wyckoff Sundays, episode 21. All right, 21, eh? Let's see here. How long is that? 21 divided by 4. Oh, we've done just over 5 months of Wyckoff Sundays. Last week was a great week. If you followed what we spoke about for Wyckoff Sundays last week, you would have pretty much seen the bottom of dollar. You would have seen a lot of great moves, happening on your USD, gold, BTC, right? A lot of different things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tap in to what happened last week. Sweep again, see what we can end up seeing happen, very, very soon. So let's go to the new points here. I think we were especially giving here. If interesting to see what happens today, or you know what I mean. First zone, right? We're already inside of that first zone. We already have a nice 4-hour down candle inside of that zone. Hold on. If it's necessarily market manipulation, to the downside, right? So. Sorry, I'm trying to see where our distribution on dollar a little bit. Okay, yeah, here we go. So this is definitely where we were starting to talk about what we could see happen, right? So as we're about to see here, right, one of the things that we were looking for dollar, obviously we saw this previous reaccumulation from this level right here, right? Let me make this white as well so you guys can see it better, right? So right here we had this zone of manipulation, right? And then we also had this area as well. Which was from NFP, right? And so seeing NFP pretty much drive the price higher, our main idea was, over the last two episodes of Wyckoff Sundays, was to first of all see, the market pull back, right? Get back into these areas of imbalances, and then from there go ahead and look to go long, right? So our main idea was to see the market go ahead and trade below this low here, right? End up having another sweep of this level, and then from there end up reaching up towards the highs, right? Overall, our target for dollar, has been to break those overall highs from the, weekly time frame, daily time frame, right? So there was definitely some good, opportunities there that came with this prediction on dollar. So maybe this push hope is that we end up getting one more drive to the downside, especially given that, again, this candle is nice, but the retest candles are not, right? We do have big wicks there on the 4-hour, 2-hour. We also have a lot of wicks, right? 1 hour is where we finally start to see a candle here, and we do have still a wick there, right? So I don't know. For me, this does kind of make it look like liquidity because there isn't really great great candles on the retest. But, given that the 4-hour continuing to push highs, I'm going to be looking for the right type of price action to go long, because again as you can see, right, this was pretty much our markup from that point was to see one more sweep to the downside, right, get a full fill of that imbalance, and then from there see price continue to the upside. As you guys can see, we were pretty much spot on to the point where we pretty much had this happen right when the market opened, right? So market, this is what price looked like when we were talking about it, right? Then when the market opened a couple of hours later, we ended up seeing dollar come all the way down here, right? So coming below this level, creating the low of the week right there, right? And then starting to create that market structure to give us the indication that we could continue to reject from that level, right? So really, all in all, pretty much a perfect, idea and markup there that did end up giving, as you guys can see, a very sizable move to the upside once FOMC was released, right? So obviously with FOMC we had just rate pauses. We didn't see a rate hike. We didn't see a rate hike or a rate cut, but it did end up having huge repercussions, I guess you could say, in the market, right? So as you guys can see right here was the FOMC moment, right? We were live for this and we did watch this happen. Again, very, very clean price action, right? Seeing how we had multiple sweeps on lows, on some of these time frames here, right? So, again, having, I believe it was, which one was nicest? I think it might have been just the 1 hour, to be honest, but we can see on the smaller time frame, right? This low here just barely being swept, sizable push to the upside, right? And then again, we end up seeing this low here, right, being swept by that low right there, right? So again, seeing these sweeps on lows and then starting to see the market again just slowly work its way higher, right? Giving really good order flow to just see that continue. there was plenty of opportunities in this area to go ahead and look for those longs, even if you didn't catch it, let's say at the bottom or on this retest or whatever. Seeing this push to the downside here definitely made it very clear. For those of you guys that were on the FOMC live stream, that's what we were saying, right? We'd probably end up seeing this liquidity get taken. And then, yeah, we literally just had that pullback and then we boom. So quite a clean, move, quite a clean reaction. And from dollar, right, we ended up looking at a couple of zones for things like Euro USD. As you guys can see, this is the zone that we were looking for, was to see, again, one more push up, right? And then from there, end up seeing the market head to the downside inside of this area here. So this range between 1.16 to, it looks like to be about 1.1635 or so. And so anyways, we had a gap here, I believe on the 1 hour, right? But we can also see on the 4 hour, beautiful institutional candles at that level, right? So I believe that's what I'm seeing. One more sweep up on dollar, one more sweep down on dollar, right? We could end up seeing one more sweep up on Euro USD, which could bring us into that gap, which could bring us into that daily trap candle on Euro USD as well, right? As we could see, we're very, very close to that trap candle. Right, and so that's a trap candle we've been talking about since episode 19, right? 19, we were also speaking about that trap candle there on EU on the daily time frame, and we did see that essentially perfectly get hit. So this is the zone that we marked up here on Wyckoff Sundays, right? Beautiful, beautiful area, and then we end up seeing again that daily time frame candle right there. That's exactly what we tapped into. So again, pretty much a perfect, analysis from that moment forward. Right, retest, and then a push back to the downside. So all of these highs here were really opportunities, right, to go ahead and look for your USD to head to the downside. And as you guys can see, like the highs obviously happened at around I think on Sunday, Monday, but then, on Wednesday when we actually had the news come out, that's when this big candle really started and we created this real big next move to the downside. But all in all, right, pretty good analysis, right, really very simple as well, right? All we really did was recognize a redistribution in this area, wait for price to come back into that area of redistribution, and then from there, look for that to head to the downside, right? It took a little bit of time to do this pullback, right? It took about 2 weeks, but definitely, was very, very clean of us to use, right? GU, same idea, add in short GU inside of these areas, right? So that's really what I'm keeping my eye on. EU there, go ahead and short GU inside of these areas, more push to the upside, right? And then from the upside are just going to be excuses to short. So if there is a good setup here, then perfect, we can go for it. But honestly, I would rather see one more push to the upside, right? And yeah, I believe that's exactly what happened there. We ended up sweeping that liquidity, here, right, with this little trend line down that was happening, sweep, right? Impulsive phase, mitigation, and then continuation, right? So once again, just really clean price action inside of a previous high where we saw manipulation take place on GU, right? And that's really all we were following, with all of these dollar pairs, right? NZD, USD, was a similar idea, right? USD CAD, similar idea. I believe USD Chef, we were looking for this to be a reaccumulation, which also did end up playing out with another sweep though. So as you guys can see, we had this distribution that happened here, right? We went ahead and reaccumulated, right? We can see these multiple drives to the downside, right? First drive, second drive, third drive from a Wyckoff perspective, right? And then starting to see the push to the upside happen after that. So again, nice reaccumulation that we were talking about for us to come below that level, right? So again, very, very clean. Right, so we getting us a good push. Right, as you guys can see, we were looking for, just another drive lower below this low. We ended up getting 2. Right, but still very, very clean, price action for what we wanted. Right, so there's Chef, UJ, same thing, right? But yeah, essentially everything across the board played out pretty much as planned, right? GU, EU, NU, right, as well. Ended up taking out the high one more time, right? Pretty much everything played out perfectly. So hopefully you guys managed to catch this on something for the currencies. It was, again, like I said, a very good zone to play off of once again. Now, we went ahead and moved into indices, right? So for indices, we spoke about this daily down candle that was sitting right here. Unfortunately, I don't think that we ended up tapping into there. So if we go ahead and look here, we can see we had the daily down candle. We were just really wanting to see, again, hopefully a pullback into this level to continue to go long. Instead, the market just ended up shooting all the way to the upside, right? Kind of getting above without actually giving us the retracement first. So yeah, didn't quite get into our zone there, right? US 30 was just too bullish, right? We spoke about NASDAQ as well, same idea. We wanted to see a pullback into that daily candle. And yeah, unfortunately, we did not get that either, right? Price just ended up kind of consolidating, to be honest, for a couple of days last week. Didn't really do all that much when it came to NASDAQ, right? Because we could see this was the daily candle from before. So this one comes up, retraces, right? Comes back up again, retraces. So it's kind of just, in the same price range for like days on end when it came to NASDAQ, right? So nothing too crazy happened there. S&P as well. Again, we were talking bullishness, but we never got quite into that area. We'll see what happens next week, though. We're going to talk about the potentials for indices here in a bit because we are seeing some interesting candles start to print. All right. Now, let's talk about gold as well. So gold, one of the biggest things that we were speaking about was to see the market get back down into this gap here, right? And the fact that we had seen, this previous sweep happen. So we were just looking for the mitigation to then go ahead and go long. Although there was big news on the weekend, which again is why a lot of these things gapped. Again, they gapped pretty perfectly to what we were expecting, but they did gap, right? And so the way that this was, we can see that rather than when the market opened, it pulling back into this area right away, we ended up seeing the market really trade up very aggressively, right? And so we had a gap, right? Price kind of chilled from that gap, right? Some people caught shorts down to go ahead and fill the gap, but we do see that it's going even farther now, right? So right now we're currently in the zone that we were looking for gold to get into. We'll see again. We'll talk a little bit about what we can see happen, but again, we didn't quite get the reaction because again, price bought up first. But keeping in mind that we were probably going to fill this gap and that we were probably going to fill this imbalance as well, I do think that the sell opportunities were pretty good for gold, right? Especially on FOMC day itself, of course, where the top did end up happening, right? We spoke about silver as well. Let's bring up silver here. Where is silver? Ahead and look for the longs from that level, right? So BTC, and then so I guess we didn't speak on silver. Level is the fact, right? It's there. It could be waste action inside of that level. Then we can go ahead and play the order flow longs here, just because it did aggressively get below. Well, same idea, really. Either way, For silver, though, the main difference with it between silver and gold, which I thought I spoke about last week, but this low here simply just isn't taken yet, right? So we do see here, like if I were to draw this line across, right, we have not taken that low. We actually respected it, right? So for me, seeing something like that, right, seeing that the low kind of happened with like such a big wick here, and then even this institutional candle, I mean, it doesn't look great for silver right now. But it really depends on this low. So again, we'll speak on that. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're speaking on the current price action there. We'll come back to that. Now BTC was the next thing we spoke about. So obviously the biggest thing with BTC was that we had a very high volume low. We were speaking on the volume. Right, let's go ahead and talk about that. Personally, we really and then we buy up the buy side basically. Well, if we go, we made our way back up to like 63, which is like up here. So yeah, again, this is kind of what we were speaking about yesterday as well. Was that there was, not yesterday, last week, there was like a volume divergence happening there, right? And that most likely long term we would end up, reaching higher. But the biggest thing is that we need to, again, create one more low, which is still what I'm expecting to see happen, right? So seeing us get below there. And with that in mind, I ended up catching a great trade on BTC because we were looking for the sells after the FOMC news event, right? And so for me, I'm kind of thinking this has some pretty decent potential to continue, and actually reach down towards these levels. We do see a pretty good accumulation here, first drive, second drive, third drive, right? And then we see up here at the top that there is a nice sweep there as well, right? So we end up having, pretty much very big candle here, right? And then the price just retesting the candle there, retesting the candle there. So lots of opportunities to short on BTC, and I did end up taking a trade in this level here after we saw price retrace back. So really, really nice, price action for BTC as well. I did have this in mind to potentially crash down to lower levels, but already being at such a high risk to reward, I did end up closing this out without holding, a runner down to here, for a 1 to 26. We might look to follow up on this though this week, which we will see. We'll talk about here in a bit. All right. So yeah, that's BTC, right? And that's pretty much all we were really looking for, right? So biggest things here was the, obviously the highlight of the week has got to be the dollar buys that we were looking for. We spoke about targeting these highs here, I believe is what we're talking about there. Let's rewind this for a second here. See, not really looking at. Again, more than anything, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to the dollar buys. I do think that we will likely be breaking through this level here, right? So it's just about us looking and treating pullbacks as excuses to long, and trying to go ahead and get a buy up towards 100, and then hopefully again hold that until 102 would really be the hope with this. So yeah, again, that's really still the narrative. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and go into what we can potentially see for this coming week. Right, so like we said, we pretty much hit our target of, reaching up towards this high here on dollar, right? After having, again, like looking at pullbacks for excuses to buy, right? So seeing us sweep that low, right? And then after that, getting up towards that high is great. We're currently at about 100, which is what we were looking at before. Now, again, like I just said in that video, I think the goal now is to essentially continue this momentum, right? I really don't expect price to, let's say do big pullbacks or anything like that, right? I would rather expect price to really just order flow, most likely lower time frame wise up towards 102. And then from there, see if we redistribute, right? We recently did have, big news come out, which is obviously that, apparently there is a peace deal between the US and Iran that has been signed, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe I should double check my facts here, right? But I was seeing even data online that shows you if the ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz, and they did end up letting people through for a while there, right? Ooh, it looks like, okay, now I'm checking here, guys, and it looks like just yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, that they declared the strait closed. And that Warren's approaching ships face a security risk. I see. Well, that's the last news that I can see here on my platform, is literally just that. So I'm not sure why the strait is going to be closed if they quote unquote sign this deal. But here we go again, Here we go again with the news and the flip and the flop, right? Again, it makes sense why our plan, for that was still, valid, right? Because our worry was that because they were speaking about, the strait being open again, that it would have an effect on what we actually see on dollar and, everything like that. But, oh yeah, someone said here, it's closed again. Yeah, I saw it was closed again. Yeah, yeah. No, the fact that I saw ships go through, I mean, that was the first time that I really saw volume really start to pick up when it comes to the amount of ships, and then suddenly out of nowhere, boom, right? We're right back at where we were before, with this whole thing. So it makes sense why dollar did end up getting that push to the upside there, because that was kind of our worry is like, okay, like we have really had this buy bias on dollar, since the war pretty much began. So our issue was, all right, is that going to potentially reverse if the war ends, right? Which could still be the case. But again, I do still think that our first target was obviously hit at 100, like we just spoke about. Potentially, if we can reach up to 102, I think we can redistribute above there. Trump threatening more strikes on Iran this afternoon too. Yeah, so we're right back where we started, aren't we, guys? Yeah, unbelievable. With what's been going on. I mean, you really don't know what news to trust, or and it really just feels like half the time that why would they say these things, and it just kind of even speaks a little bit more towards manipulation as a whole, because like the only thing that really gets affected by this is the markets, and the markets react quick to stuff like that. Like how many things have we seen just from a fake news just being like, oh yeah, the war's over, and then the market pumps or dumps, but then it doesn't reverse if they find out that this news is not real, right? So it just kind of continues in that direction. So I think it's just meant to create confusion, instability, in like these big moves that happen, so people aren't a part of it. But Yeah, it's all just very, very strange. Guarantee his son has a $20 million long on oil. It's probably possible. Probably ask for a loan to just get a quick pump on oil, man. But yeah, so cool. Good to know the news, right? When it comes to dollar again, that's what I'm saying. The plan stays the same. We continue to head up towards the weekly target at 102. Euro USD is close to its own weekly target, very, very close, which is right up here at 1.1390, which we've been talking about for a really long time, right? So most likely we will be seeing Euro USD head towards that level as well, right? And then yeah, GU too. I mean, this is a redistribution, so we should probably get below here as well. So I would say treating pullbacks, as excuses to short. If you're really good at recognizing reaccumulations and stuff, that would be kind of the more of the zones that we'd be looking at. Would be again like kind of getting above, previous highs, right? Seeing if we could get institutional candles above there, or maybe even getting back into previous redistributions like up here, right? But I wouldn't really be expecting like big pullbacks personally. I'd be more expecting momentum to just continue. So just keep using pullbacks as excuses to short, I would say, and try and find out where we can see, these institutional candles starting to form on some of those higher time frames, 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, for us, right? And that'll really help us see when we're going to see that next impulse to the upside on dollar. But yeah, guys, all in all, not really expecting big pullbacks and just expecting price to pretty much continue the trend that we have been on. By the looks of it to me, especially given just how close we really are to our weekly target, right? So I don't expect that to stop. So I would rather see pushes higher be treated as pullbacks for right now, right? And I doubt we're going to get all the way back up here. So most likely just going to be waiting for the right price action at the right timing, coming above highs or whatever it might be. And definitely keeping an eye on things like Euro USD, right? Probably above this level here, and maybe even just getting back into about 1.15 or so to 1.1525, somewhere around that 25 pip range to look for shorts. I think looks good for me, right? So something like this essentially would be nice, right? Getting right back into this little trap move there, right? It's not a trap candle, but yeah, you could see how, people definitely got trapped in at that level. So definitely going to be looking at that. Sorry, for the longs, all right? And then again, heading towards the target at 1.1390 and the target at 102 for dollar, right? GU, same idea, right? GU though, compared to EU, has got, kind of a nice setup in the lows, I can't lie. But again, just given the fact that, again, that this was a accumulation and everything, but it turned into a distribution, I expect it to continue lower. I don't really expect us to react from this low, even though like across the board, I'm not going to lie to you guys, like we do see again, 4 hour down candle here, very nice, right? Euro USD as well, 4 hour down candle here, very nice, right? Like pretty much everything has it, right? AU as well, 4 hour down candle, just barely getting below that level. It's kind of hard to, to not think that that could end up being a zone. But for me, I just think that, again, the distribution still hasn't really completed. We need to see price really get below the lows of these distributions, and we haven't quite had that yet. So personally for me, even though those institutional candles are present, I think that most likely we're still going to continue to the upside. So more so, again, maybe we get a push lower here on dollar, filling areas of imbalance, and then from there we can actually start to get the push back to the upside. I'm not expecting like big moves down towards here or anything to then go up. I'd rather just again see smaller imbalances and stuff like that get filled. I think can make more sense. So that would be like this on EU and stuff like that, GU, right? So that's kind of my idea for this. Again, obviously we need to have the right price action in those zones. But for me, from a higher time frame perspective, these are going to be the zones I'm definitely going to be paying attention to on EU and GU, right? And I probably wouldn't use NU or AU for these examples, right? NU and AU are obviously the much more bullish type of assets. So you don't really want to be like, using them for the dollar buy ideas. You want to be using things like EU and GU personally, right? Cool. So that's currency, guys. Let's go ahead and tap into metals. All right. So like I said, we did have a beautiful sell-off on gold last week, heading down towards our buy zone, which was right here from last week. Now, if we can see this happen, I don't know, right? Definitely, I think it is possible. If we do end up getting, like good price action down in the low, I would consider it. Sorry. I would consider it, to be honest, especially just given how this low really happened on multiple time frames, and again we have a gap down here and everything, right? I would say maybe again we do see another sweep down to really fill this gap and let price go to the upside, because we do see a small gap here that we tap into barely, but we haven't filled it. So personally, that's what I would rather see, for us to just barely sweep that low, fill the gap, and then maybe from there we can go long again on this. But that's all speculation at the moment, right? When we do look at the current price action, there's no reason to buy here, right? Really, no reason to buy. We have a bit of a nice 4 hour down candle here, you could say maybe, but other than the 4 hour, like the daily isn't great, right? The 2 hour is not bad actually. The 1 hour, yeah, you could see I mean, it doesn't really sweep anything, the 1 hour. But again, I just think that if we are really going to go long, I'd rather see this imbalance fully get filled and maybe even come deeper into this level. But yeah, technically, right now I would say the structure is still bearish technically. So, we definitely still want to be careful, even though this could be a good area that did sweep through, a very significant low right here. For me, it's just not really too confirmed at the moment. So maybe if we start to create more structure to the upside, I'd feel more confident in like long in gold. But at the moment, it's just not really giving that, right? So like, if we do end up holding this low and then we start to do the structure to the upside and we do all that, then yeah, I might go for the longs inside of the pullbacks. But otherwise, right now, as we can see, the current price action is very bearish, right? All we did last week was distribute. It's literally all we did last week, right? We opened up here, right? We held around the same range. We swept the high right before FOMC, and then boom, huge sell-off that created the top. So all we really have done is a full distribution. So if we can see a proper reaccumulation, great. If not, like honestly, again, like it's not as nice for me with gold. And I'd rather just get, again, the only way I'd really play gold like this is if it got deeper, I could take a trade with a much smaller stop and just try to see if we can get that reversal. So that's what I'm hoping for, is that we just get deeper into this yellow zone where it just becomes worth the risk to reward to play it, because it is still a decent zone, right? Seeing the sweep of that higher time frame level and everything. But you guys already know, right? Whenever I want to buy inside of a certain area, like if I want to buy inside of here, why is it letting me circle here? Yeah, if I want to buy inside of this level, I always want to see what happened in the high where price came from. And, seeing what happened in this high, it's a pretty beautiful distribution. So we're going to want to be careful, definitely, and maybe just take a wait and see approach with how gold and silver reacts to the market open, and really not do anything too crazy. If I were to long one out of the two, it would probably be silver, just given the liquidity that I can kind of see just building above there. And again, hopefully it does end up doing something like that as well to reach before it reaches that liquidity, right? So I am kind of liking that liquidity to the upside, though. I cannot lie. But again, the only thing we really did last week was distribute, right? We could see these relatively equal highs here, right? We can see this big sweep. Right? That's pretty much what the market decided to do, right? It was just distribute. So until we get a nice accumulation price action, I'm going to be very cautious with this, right? Now let's talk about indices, right? Indices, very similar to gold, had a big distribution this week. That pushed to the upside there. But what I'm really liking is some of these daily candles that have happened, right? So seeing this daily up candle here, right? Seeing how this previous candle was a trap candle, most likely I would say that we are going to be reaching down towards these levels again, and probably even towards this daily institutional candle here at 57.95. That's personally what I'm thinking for this week. We'll see what happens when it does take this low. But right now I do expect, this level here to get hit, right? Fill more of this gap, right? Hopefully get deeper into the daily zone. Just given the fact that we had a distribution here at the top, and then when we look at the daily, we also have a nice institutional candle. The nice IC is there, and we do have the, wick also running the high there. So kind of interesting how we created that, and maybe it can end up causing a bigger push to the downside than we thought. And when I do look at the daily on things like NASDAQ, I mean, that's kind of in play too, right? Up candle there, right? Potential trap candle just printed, right? If this high holds, and this ends up coming down, this could actually be a pretty decent down move for the indices. So yeah, same thing here with S&P. I mean, going back into that daily candle and reacting pretty beautifully. Like I said, again, if this next daily candle were to come bearish, that would end up being a pretty beautiful trap candle play, coming right back down towards the lows again, right? So for NASDAQ, maybe if we do see that high hold and a push down, then it looks good to short for the rest of the week. And then same for US 30, right? If we can actually pull back into above 50, 51, 640, then this would be a good area for us to potentially look for, shorts from what I'm thinking, right? Again, because of the way we shot up, because of the distribution that happened right here at the top, I actually think that, we can reverse, at least down into the daily candle. And then from here, maybe we look for the buy scenarios again. But yeah, just the way that this price action all played out, I mean, sweep after sweep, right? Like sweeps here, right? Trap candles there, right? Most likely, we can get something like that to happen is basically the hope. And mostly I'd be paying attention to US 30 for this idea, not so much NASDAQ in there. All right. So that's indices. Just some interesting daily candles there that I started to print. And then obviously last but not least is crypto, right? So for me, guys, pullbacks as excuses to short, all right? Up to here would probably be best, right? Probably right up and above that level to create a sweep and then eventually start to continue this redistribution down. Why do I say that? Well, last week we did end up having these relatively equal highs here that had played out. Right? We can see all these highs here pretty much in the same area, right? And then we ended up seeing the market, start out here, huge buy up, right? And then sold right back down. So to me, this looks like a manipulation phase, an impulsive phase, and now we're potentially coming back for our mitigation phase, right? So this can either, one, again, hold this level here, but the mitigation phase can also run some internal liquidity. So definitely just wait for the right price action and start to play this on the way down. So like rather than just trying to catch the top or anything or just play a zone, right? What I'd rather see is like, again, price goes ahead, sweeps, and then starts to walk its way down kind of like that, right? The same way that we really saw here when I took that trade, right? Would be for us to just walk our way down and play that second level, right? So hopefully that can be the case with BTC, fingers crossed. So yeah, that's crypto, really just looking for shorts and indices again. Also, I think shorts can happen. Taking a wait and see approach with gold. And then from there, just looking for dollar to continue to pump, looking for EU to continue to dump and GU to continue to dump. So these pretty much all align, right? These pretty much all align with one another. We'll see if gold actually gives a proper buy setup. Right now, there is nothing there. All we did last week was distribute. So obviously, again, approach it with caution. And since we have the straight is closed again, let's go ahead and take a look at oil since that might end up being a big opportunity. So yeah, oil's in a great place, y'all. There is a gap a little bit lower, right? So as we can see over here, the gap is lower. Right. So yeah, maybe us, playing into this gap can end up being the move for us to actually look for longs because I still don't think this war is going anywhere, right? I mean, by the looks of it, people are just yapping and getting angrier and angrier. So it's not looking great. It is not looking great, for this war to really end. So yeah, I think that we just continue with the plan that we've been doing, guys. We don't need to change it. Maybe just look to add indices to the list of things we want to short. And then we'll go from there. But yeah, I personally do think that NASDAQ going to the downside can make a lot of sense. S&P as well. US 30 the most. So definitely we'll take a look at US 30 above 51,600. That would be my main play for the week. And then look for some smaller time frame plays on EU and GU. Because I think we're in full momentum now, right? So probably not any higher time frame pullbacks for a while. Just going to be probably creating a smaller time frame price action and structure. But anyways, guys, that's it from me. All right, Wyckoff Sundays episode 21. Hopefully we can see this week play out just as good as last week. Last week really was a really, really good session. So yeah, guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. And for those of you guys that are on the YouTube, appreciate you guys being on there as well. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Much love, much appreciation. Peace out. Deuces.